pagans and spiritual seekers. So on this divination video, we're going to be talking about my specialty, which is tarot. So as a professional tarot reader, obviously this is my top divination tool. It's the number one that works best for me. This doesn't necessarily mean that tarot is going to work for you and that it has to work for everybody. Again, it's another very popular one, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. Tarot also didn't work for me for a long time. It took a long time and the right deck for it to click. So it might take some exploration, some practicing, trying different techniques before it clicks for you, or it just might not. So in this video, I'm not going to be talking about definitions of cards. I'm also doing my sub-series about that. So on this video, I'm just going to be talking about the general purpose of tarot cards and different types of spreads you can do. So tarot, just like many divination tools, have been used for thousands of years in different forms. It actually stems from a regular playing card deck. And people used a playing card deck, again, a few different ways, to do divination readings or fortune-telling readings. It was all kind of fortune tellers is what they were called back then. So having a fancy, complicated deck is, again, not necessary. You can technically do tarot readings with a regular deck of playing cards. But a more modern deck obviously is a little bit easier. Some of them have the definitions written right on them. So I mean, it all depends on what works for you. Unlike some divination tools, you can use tarot cards to get a very intricate answer or get an intricate explanation. You can also use tarot cards for mediumship. I've done it a few times on my readings where somebody's grandma's coming through and I'm using the cards to kind of help interpret what grandma's trying to say. So you can use it in very different forms. Because the definitions of the cards, especially the artwork, depending on the deck, it can be so intricate, there can be many reasons and definitions for the cards. This is very much true if you're doing intuitive reading. I personally do intuitive reading, so I can pull the same card on 30 different people, but it'll mean 30 different things. But when you're starting out, just like I did, using the proper definitions of the cards can kind of help you just get in tuned with the cards, get in tuned with using the deck and trying to put cards together to decipher a bigger meaning. This is definitely a tool that you can't master overnight. It takes a lot of practice and it can take a lot of time before you get really comfortable with using it and get quicker at deciphering the meanings. So this is my Everyday Witch Tarot deck by Deborah Blake. This is my number one deck, my number one go-to deck. This is the deck that really clicked for me as far as doing tarot readings. Oh, and we've got a flopper. So I had multiple decks before this and tried different decks and different books and all that kind of jazz. And yeah, I could do a reading with them, but I really struggled. When I got this deck, it is just easy peasy lemon squeezy. The messages come through so easy. So again, it just depends on the deck. So the easiest type of spread is a 3-card spread, and this is my actual go-to spread. If you ever get a tarot reading by me, this is exactly what you're going to say. I always start with a 3-card spread and then I build from there as I feel in tuned. But a 3-card spread is definitely the easiest way to start. In basics, a 3-card spread is a past, present, and future. They can be read either way depending on how you draw. Usually the first one is past, present, future. So if you draw the cards the other way, that's fine. It's all up to you. So for this one, for example, I wasn't actually putting anything out in the universe, for example, but this is how I would read it. This is what was happening in the past. This is what's happening in the present and what it will lead it to in the future. Most of the time when I'm just doing a general reading, just kind of guiding messages, whatever needs to be, whatever message needs to be delivered to whoever I'm reading, I leave it open to interpretation, and it's usually a general, overall, big, major steps in their life. If you're asking about a specific thing, so if you're asking about wealth, if you're asking about family, if you're asking about a job, then the past, present, future would be specific to that subject. You can also easily build upon your 3-card spread by turning it into a 6-card spread or a 9-card spread. And this is another thing that I do very commonly. And what this is doing is the extra cards that you're adding on top is just going to better define what this card is related to. So this card here, about the present, or sorry, about the past, these cards are just going to further expand on what this card is related to. Same with these cards related to this card. Same with these cards related to this card. Another easy general reading that you can do for yourself or for somebody else without any specific action is doing a cross reading. So you have your center, which is your kind of present situation, present conflict, what's underneath you, what's above, what's behind, and what's forward, or vice versa. So what this is kind of telling us is this is the general conflict that's happening in their life right now, what's affecting them, so what's above, what is affecting the situation, what's the foundation of that conflict, what past situation is affecting this, and what is ahead in the future. Now, what's ahead in the future isn't necessarily always going to be positive, but if you really believe in energy healing, you know that you have to go through some hardships and some hard work before you get to the positive and to the light. So getting a card like this, for example, yeah, it might mean there's some hard work ahead, but that means you're also growing and progressing. So don't shy away from those hard cards or those negative cards. You can always do the classic one card spread. I'm actually not a fan of the one card spread, even if it's for like quick answers. I find I don't get enough detail from one card to get my full answer. So I find that I always end up drawing extra cards, but a lot of people do it. People do daily draws every morning to kind of like lead their day, or to kind of give them some insight on their day. So it's absolutely warranted. A lot of people do it. I just personally don't. And a one card spread can literally be used for anything. There's many different examples of spreads you can find online. Some are simple as using 3 cards for 3 different purposes, all the way up to like 30, 40 cards. And I mean, you're getting close to using the entire deck at that point. But each card represents a different part of the situation or the person or whatever type of reading that you're doing. I would suggest starting with 1, 3, maybe 5 or 6 card spreads while you're still trying to learn the cards. Once you start pulling out different cards and seeing, you know, certain ones repeatedly, those meanings and the definitions behind them will get more easy for you to kind of click in. So when you start doing bigger spreads, you'll be able to interpret it faster and easier. I'm just going to show you some other common tarot decks that I use, especially in my professional practice, that you may be interested in. So one tarot deck that I use is the Vampire's Tarot of Eternal Night. This is what the back looks like. And this is an example of the artwork, so it's definitely really dark. There's like some monsters and some like really distressing-ish pictures. And I really like this deck, and so I use this deck when I need to call people out on their bullshit. This deck, if anything, if any of my decks are gonna call you on your BS, it's this deck. So it's one of those like, I'll do my general reading and kind of see the general theme of the reading, and then it's kind of like, you're hiding some stuff, girl, or you're ignoring some stuff and you know you are, so let's pull this out and call you out on your bullshit. And it's a great tool. This deck for me has been a great tool to pull out the darker stuff. These cards here, I think it's called the Book of Shadows Tarot. I can't remember because I've been carrying them in these bags for so long. I can't remember exactly what they're called. But this deck is a as above, so is below. So it's actually 2 decks that work together. So there's this green deck and then a blue deck. So the backs are very similar, just the different colors, just green and blue. But the artwork is very different. All of the pictures and representations in the green cards, in the earth card or the down below cards, are about family, physical items. It shows different, different scenarios, whereas the above card is very whimsical, like this, kind of this like fantasized kind of scenarios, for example. So they work together very, very well. And when I use these cards, I draw a card from each deck each time I'm using them, because these are going to go together. So what is Spirit trying to tell you, and what are you doing in your physical life? Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. And I really like using these decks or this system to kind of see where there's disconnects between your spiritual self and your physical self. It took me a while to really master these cards. Like, it took a lot of practice, but they work so good now for that. Another deck that I use semi-commonly, depending on who I'm reading, is the Tarot of Sexual Magic. I know it's a subject that is very taboo in our culture and people don't like to talk about it and shibbity shabbity, but sex is a big part of life as a human. As women, we are told to not be sexual beings, and a lot of people have difficulties with their sexuality and their sexual relationships, and etc., etc. So I like to pull out this deck when I feel in tuned of like, honey needs some help, or I'm seeing like dissatisfaction and we need to address it. And because of community guidelines, I can only show you the box. So that's it for this video. This is kind of just general, get you started on doing some spreads in tarot. Again, I have that like sub-series where I'm going through all the different meanings of the cards, which you can refer to. It's not complete yet, but kind of get you started on some of the definitions anyway. And again, you can find out the definitions and learn many ways. There's lots of books, online courses. I don't really promote any specifically, but some people swear by them. And again, just doing it intuitively. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned at least one thing, and I will see you on the next one. I also have this like even naughtier sex deck. And usually only my close friends, I feel brave enough to bring this out. But this deck brings out all your fantasies for sure.